So I'm back at it doing some more cleaning. This time, I'm going to show you how to break down and clean a keg like this, reassemble it. We'll also take a quick look at a couple other types of kegs, including my small Torpedo kegs and also some pinlock kegs. And then I'll show you some top secret tips on disassembling and reassembling these types of disconnects. So let's get cleaning. Let's get started with gathering up the needed supplies. I usually use either some mild detergent that is free of dyes and odors or some OxiClean free. OxiClean seems a little better at breaking down organic matter, so I'm going to go ahead and use that today. PBW is a similar cleaner that is popular, but I'm fairly frugal, so picking up a tub of OxiClean at Walmart or Target fits my style well. I have a brush to help reach down into the bottom of the keg, a sponge and scrub brush for cleaning parts. A couple small brushes are great for reaching down into small areas. Not shown is a long line cleaning brush that I use to hit the inside of the dip tube. A small tub for cleaning the small parts is handy. For tools, I have a combination wrench for removing the ball lock posts, a deep socket that works well for the posts on my Torpedo kegs, an adjustable wrench for the threaded fittings or for pin lock posts. As far as the size of the combination wrench, the 7/8 inch one works well for the posts on my 5-gallon ball lock kegs, but as I understand, some can be different. Well, I'm going to demonstrate cleaning a keg between batches. If you purchased or acquired used kegs, most of the same steps will apply. With used kegs, it's important to replace any of the O-rings or gaskets. You can get sets of replacements from your local shop or from online vendors. This is a kit that came with O-rings for 5 kegs. I picked it up off Amazon for around $12 US. It comes with a pick that looks like it could be handy. I have found that for removing the O-rings on disconnects, I just have to give the O-ring a bit of a squeeze. I can then pull it off easily by hand. I probably do not replace my O-rings as often as I should. I do find that the O-rings on the disconnects tend to wear out the fastest, so they end up getting replaced more often than the others for me. The first step before cleaning the keg is to relieve the pressure. The valve on this ball lock keg makes this easy. For pin lock kegs without a relief valve, depress the poppet on the gas disconnect. One day soon, I hope to upgrade from using picnic taps, but for now I start by breaking down my liquid line. I use an adjustable wrench to remove the disconnect end. With a small screwdriver, I unscrew the cap on the disconnect. I remove each of the inner pieces and place them into the tub to soak. Later in the video, I'll give a closer look at the individual parts. The 3/8 inch tubing attached to my utility sink is handy to flush out the line with some hot water. I start on the keg by removing the lid and the lid gasket. Both of those will go in the tub to soak. I next use the combination wrench to remove the ball lock disconnects. First the gas disconnect, along with the poppet and short gas tube. Then the liquid disconnect and poppet. All the small pieces go into the tub of OxiClean and water to soak. This keg is from my gold medal winning porter. This really was a great beer, so be sure to check out that video for more information. Cleaning out the inside of the keg is pretty straightforward. I first give it a couple rinses to get out the worst of the crud. Then I add a small scoop of OxiClean and some hot water. Then I use the long-handled brush to scrub the bottoms and the sides of the keg. It's a bit of a tight fit for me to reach my arm all the way to the bottom of the keg, so the brush keeps me from scraping up my arm too much. It's probably not that critical, but I hit the post openings with a small brush. I give the solution a little shake and then dump it out into the utility sink. The keg is looking nice and clean at this point. The next step is to give a few good rinses. This is to ensure all the detergent is rinsed out of the keg. And there we go! Clean, shiny, and ready for another batch of beer. Next step is to clean the liquid dip tube. I first remove the O-ring gasket. Clean off the outside of the tube. Flush some hot water through the inside. then hit the inside with my line cleaning brush. Before giving the dip tube a good rinse and then calling it clean. I then tackle cleaning all the smaller pieces. I won't bore you with all the details here. At this point, most of the pieces are really in pretty good shape. I use a combination of the sponge and a small brush to give each piece a quick cleaning. One tip I have is to watch out for the small parts like the O-rings or poppets. They can be easy to miss and dump down the drain with dirty water. So is it really necessary to break down and clean a keg between each batch? In my view, cleaning and sanitation are critical aspects to brewing great beers. I don't think it's worth risking a batch just to save 15 minutes of fairly simple cleaning. With all the small pieces cleaned, I give them all a good final rinse. Then set the keg in parts aside to dry. So now that the keg is all cleaned, it's time to assemble it. So I've got a couple other kegs here. So this one here is the ball lock keg that we need to assemble. This here is a pin lock keg. I've got a couple extra pin lock kegs in storage that somebody donated to my homebrew club. I don't use pin lock kegs, but we'll take a quick look at that and look at the differences. The other one I have a couple of these Torpedo. They're about 2.5 gallon, 10-liter kegs. Those are also ball lock kegs, but we'll take a quick look at some of the differences between these kegs. So if we look at the pieces that we have for the ball lock keg, here's the lid with the gasket on the top. Got two posts. The one we usually either have, sometimes has notches or star is for the gas. And that one comes with a small little dip tube along with a gasket for the top, an O-ring, and then a poppet inside of there. And again, we have the same thing over here. This time we've got the longer dip tube for the liquid. We've got our liquid post. We've got a O-ring to go onto the dip tube, and then we've also got our poppet. I don't know if it's critical which post to use. Mine has a little out here, so we're going to use that for the beer. We're going to drop in, I already put the O-ring on the end of that. We're going to drop in our dip tube. That's going to, notice how it's curved, so that's going to go right down into the center of the keg. Drop that in, just wiggle it in place. We're going to take the poppet, which is going to go right in there, and then just screw that on. Make sure it's centered. Sometimes a little bit of keg lube in there may help. And this one, we're just using a 7/8 inch socket. Go right on there. We can tighten that up. Snug it up. All right, now we'll flip it around and look at the gas post. This one just has a small little tube. We'll go ahead and put our O-ring on there, drop that in place. So I think sometimes the poppets are a little different depending on which type of keg you have. Again, this one is a star shaped, so that one's indicating to me that that's for the gas post. You can drop that in there, screw it on hand tight, and this is where that combination wrench comes in really handy. So this is a star shaped, get that on there, and just snug her down. So now those are good to go. The lid itself is very easy. In this case, since it's a ball lock keg, it's got a pressure relief valve right on the top. We just go ahead and put the O-ring gasket on there. Some keg lube sometime may be needed to help get it to seal. Just drop in one side, spin it around, kind of hold it up, and pop that right in place. The pin lock keg is very similar. It's called a pin because these have pins on them. I believe the 3 post is for the beer line and the one with 1 post is for the gas. These ones, I can't get that down in there because of the post. They do sell special sockets, I think, that are notched out for them. What I see most people do is just take something like an adjustable wrench. You can get it on there like that around and then you're able to either tighten or loosen the posts. Lid's very similar. I think one of the big differences between a pin lock keg is that they don't have a manual release on here. So when you need to release pressure, your best bet is to take the gas post and do the liquid line. You're getting it sprayed with beer. So make sure you release pressure through the gas post on these. So I'm not quite sure how universal the posts and the poppets are for pin lock kegs. In these cases, I noticed that the poppet is in there pretty good. If we look at it from this way, we can see the poppet in there. The easiest way I found to pop those out was, in this case, I just take a punch or something. In this case, I have a screwdriver with a tip on there. I found that if I just put it in there, I could pretty easily just pop those out. All right, so now we've got our poppet out. We're able to get in there, make sure it's nice and clean on any of these. And then reassembly, put it in there, kind of press it up there, get it back in, lock kind of back in place, and then reassemble those. So taking a look at the Torpedo keg, again, these are ball lock, just like my standard 5-gallon ones I use. These ones are very similar lid with gasket. The poppet is a little different. One thing I would say, these ones, I use this, they both have the same, neither of them have the star, the 12 point like my other ones do. So I use this deep socket for these. In this case, I find a 17 millimeter works well for these. If that's the exact size or not, I'm sure there's a SAE one that works as well. That'll fit right on there to tighten or loosen. These are loosened right now. These have a slightly different setup. So this keg has both a spring, and then it's got a separate piece for the seal, I guess, the poppet seal and the spring, and that's going to fit right over top of this post. Assembly is very similar. Sometimes I found with these ones, I usually just set it on. Sometimes it goes in there a little better. Just put it on top, lower that down, and then tighten it. Oh, lower that down and then just tighten it. And then I'm going to use that socket. Make sure it's on. Just get that on there. Snug it up, and now that's good to go. And let's take a quick look at the disconnects here. Again, these are my ball lock disconnects. I may have some pin lock ones around, but I don't think I do. So the way these ones work, this one's a disassembled. We've got the body of it, and then we've got 4 pieces that go in it. One is this pin, which is what's going to come down at the bottom. This actually flips that way, the long side up. It's got a spring, it's got this little O-ring, and then the cap. If we look quickly, one thing I would say about disassembling them, easiest things, well, some people don't realize that these unscrew, so if you use some kind of flat screwdriver, just stick it in there and unscrew it. And one thing to watch out for is, so this little washer here, when you take it, it can be really easy to miss it. Sometimes it'll be stuck down in the body, and sometimes it'll be up on the top. Sometimes these are black, sometimes they are clear. So sometimes they're pretty hard to see, and it's pretty small and easy to lose. So that's very important to keep track of that. So before we reassemble it, let's take a quick look at how this works, right? So this is down in there blocking it. So one thing, that's why I think cleaning these are very important, because your beer is flowing up all around this spring, around these pieces and out. So there's lots of opportunities for either potentially hop matter or just residue to get stuck in there. So unless you're doing a really good job of flushing them out, I think the easiest way to do is just disassemble them and make sure everything is clean. All right, so let's take a quick look at my top secret way for reassembling these. It's a little bonus. So basically, first thing I do is I take the cap, put that washer right on there, put that O-ring right on there. I'll take the spring, so I'm assembling these upside down, put the spring on there, take the post with the long side up, that's going to go down in there. So notice how those, so now we've got our piece assembled upside down, and now we can just take the body upside down and put it on there and just give it a spin, usually tighten right up. And then once we've got it going a little bit, then we can tighten it down. And you gotta make sure you tighten those down a little bit, snug them. Otherwise, you don't want either gas leaking out. You don't want liquid leaking out. So if you enjoyed this quick hit video on disassembling, cleaning, and reassembling kegs, make sure you check out these other playlists with other homebrewing how-tos. Check out this video for other great ideas on building great beer. And also, be sure to subscribe so you can find your way back to my channel, and click that like button to show me some support. Thanks a lot.